I'm Anne-Marie Butlin, and I'm very excited to be having my second solo exhibition at the Thackeray Gallery.
Thank you very much for welcoming me into your home. This is your second solo show with Thackeray.
It is, yeah.
The first one was in the middle of lockdown, which was interesting and wonderfully successful. So we're delighted to have this second one. And it's been, would you say, a year's work?
Yes, it has been a year's work. And
it's all, I mean, there's been a little bit more freedom, but not that much since the last show. But it's probably, I think we've got about 34, 35 pictures coming into the show, ranging in size, ranging in subject, and ranging in colour. Your canvases, it seems that you prepare them with a warm sort of terracotta-y colour, is that right?
Yes. Well, yes, I stretch them myself actually,
okay.
And then I prime them with a gesso primer.
Yeah.
So they've got a bit of tooth, a bit of texture.
Okay.
And then I always work with put a ground on first.
Yeah.
So that's usually a sort of burnt sienna, which is that really warm, terracotta.
Oh, and how did you find that colour and discover it? Why? Because a lot of people I know will literally just gesso it an off-white.
Yes,
so it's a much more of a sort of dynamic option.
Yes, it's really strong.
Yeah.
It's quite a strong colour, and I use it in varying amounts. Sometimes, with the more subtle paintings, I'll keep quite a thin wash, and I'll keep the colour sort of knocked back a bit. But with some of them, I really do use it, and it's quite a sort of orangey colour.
And is it on every background of every painting?
No, I do sometimes perhaps with a white flower or a pink flower.
Okay.
When you don't want it to be, especially with pink actually, if I don't want it to be too sort of pretty.
Yes.
Because pink is a really hard colour to get right. I will put a blue background. For example, the big Midsummer garden painting that's going to be in the show, that's actually on a blue ground. Presumably
for you as an artist, there must be a different approach to a small painting versus a big painting.
Yes, there is. The small paintings tend to be still lifes, so I work in quite different ways actually.
Right.
The still lives and the big sort of garden paintings, big flower paintings. The still lives I pretty much always do from life. So I will have picked the flowers, or I'll have got the flowers from a variety of places. Yeah. And I'll stick those in a vase, I'll arrange them how I want them to be, and I'll work directly from life. So that's the difference. Whereas the bigger pieces, I tend to work from photographs.
Okay. And what about out in the actual landscape? Will you ever do that?
No, I've rarely done
that.
Actually.
Right.
Yes.
Because you don't feel drawn to that, or you just prefer the sort of discipline of being alone in the studio undisturbed?
I really like being alone in the studio. Even when I was at art college, I would quite often just pack my stuff up and go and work at home, because I'm quite sort of solitary when I'm working.
Do you share, maybe you do with your family, pictures half finished and get their opinion? Or?
Yes, I do. I do that quite a lot, because with there's only a few people that I really trust. Yeah. One of them's my sister. Right. And then I've got a friend who I used to teach with, and I really respect her opinion. My sister's brutally frank with me.
Okay, is she in the art world as well? Or?
She's not at all.
Okay.
No,
so that's sort of perfect. So she's completely objective.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll just send her a photograph and she'll say stop, or she'll say that you need to do a bit more to this or whatever. Right. So I mean, I don't do that all the time. It's just sometimes you've kind of a difficult.
Well, I think one of the interesting things you said is that it's a very solitary profession. So how do you get a feeling of objectivity and some support? It's a tricky one because you're so close to it. Yes. It's all consuming. Yes. How do you know when it's finished? I mean, do you ever sort of feel, I think you get the balance of your paintings perfectly. I never have felt, I've looked at one and thought, oh, that's overworked.
Really?
Because that's one of the biggest challenges, isn't it? It's not like reading a book, there's no end.
No,
it's completely personal.
That actually, I think knowing when to finish a painting is everything, really.
Would you say flowers is your thing?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Is that? I mean, has it always been your thing?
Yes, it has, strangely. But I have. I mean, I used to do largely still lives, and the sort of big garden paintings, I've probably been doing those for about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, something like that. That's been lovely, actually. It's a really nice sort of development in my work, and that's really...
Do you mean the hedgerows?
Yes.
And the sort of great big generous paintings of what they look almost like more wild flowers, don't they? Just going back a bit in time for you, do you remember the moment when you thought, this is what I want to do as a career?
Well, I mean, I did a fine art degree, and I didn't really deviate from that idea. When I was doing my fine, I was quite clear about doing that. And then I always wanted to be a painter. Really, I didn't change my mind, and I taught for a while, but I continued painting.
You taught art.
I taught art in a secondary school. But I painted professionally all the way through that.
Okay.
And I came out of college, I carried on painting. And
do you remember your first picture you ever sold?
I do remember. I think I was still at art college, actually.
Yeah. Did you know the person that bought it?
No.
Wow.
No.
So that's even more, because often people get off the ground with support from friends, family, and then they it widens out, the net increases, blah blah blah. But okay, so a complete stranger was the first person.
Yes, it was a sort of gallery competition or exhibition. I can't really remember, in Leicester, and I went to college in Loughborough, and
okay.
So I did. We were encouraged to exhibit.
Yeah.
A fair bit.
Was it a degree show, or was it just? No,
I don't think it was actually. No,
okay, so and then someone phoned you up and said, "We just sold one of your pictures." Yes, what did that feel like?
Well, it's absolutely thrilling. It still is.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the best thing ever. Yeah. What a compliment, that people choose to.
And it's so then there's never been a sort of moment of change. It's just been a continuation for you.
It has.
College to artist.
Yes, I think. Obviously, it's you're very aware, especially when, if you've done a fine art degree, you're really aware that the number of people who actually make a living painting are few and far between, and you'd be very lucky to do that. So I taught, but in the back of my head, the idea of being a full-time painter was always what I wanted. That's what I wanted to do, and so I feel incredibly fortunate. That
you've been able to do
that.
And as you say, the thrill of getting that phone call saying somebody's bought never dissipates. No. Whether it's a big picture or a little picture, it's that feeling of connection. Having been made. And I know from knowing you and talking with you that you've had the privilege, I guess, of seeing a lot of your paintings in people's homes. You've been involved in installations, commissions, etc., etc. So you've seen the journey of your paintings and where they then end up. And what does that feel like for you? Do you find it difficult to ever let your pictures go, or are you very at peace with that?
Well, sometimes it's hard to let them go because you get very fond of them, and as you can see that I do bring the paintings into the house to live with them. So I get very, very fond of some, but no, it's just a lovely feeling to go and see a painting in somebody's home, and people amaze me, actually. I've been very, very clever in what they choose. I've quite often gone in and just thought, my goodness, you've chosen just the perfect painting
for them
spot.
Or that house. I mean, I suppose I always say to people, try not to buy for a space, buy what you like, because spaces change. Paintings, they come with you. You take them in every chapter and every house of your life. So if people buy what they're true to their response to things, then it should always, I think, work. That's the thing. You are a painter who does an enormous amount of flowers. They're obviously seasonal. So are there points in the year where you're like, oh, I'm just desperate to paint that, but it's not out?
Yes, yes, there are. But what I tend to do is gather lots and lots of information and take lots of photographs when those flowers are available.
Yeah.
And so I've got an enormous bank really of images.
Okay, so then you can go and
Yes.
So you work partly from the real thing and then partly from the photography.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So all year round you could produce a flower irrespective of whether it's seasonal or it's growing at that point.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you ever come across a flower and you just haven't been able to paint it? You've just I can't capture you.
Yes, it is. I mean, certain things are really difficult. Peonies are very difficult.
They're very difficult.
They are.
Is it because of all the layers?
There's yes. Well, they're incredibly complex. So you have to get the lighting right.
And also, your style is sort of more blocky, and you've got a sort of lovely pointillism style almost. There's this element of slightly abstract way you build up your flowers.
Sometimes in some of the paintings I'll keep some of them really very, very loose and very simple, and then I'll perhaps almost focus in on one flower
within the
that's got a little bit more.
And would that be on like your smaller pictures? You would do that?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, they're just. I think they're just so charming. You know, the sort of simplicity, the balance, and the sort of harmony that you manage to achieve. And I love, you often have a two-tone background.
Yes.
You know, the sort of, it might be a strip of a shadow line, or I don't know, but there's a sort of lovely feeling of space without you sort of filling it all. And I think that would probably take quite a bit of confidence, because the temptation to fill every bit of your other canvas must be strong.
Yes. I think I've probably done those more recently, because you're right, you do have to be a bit sort of
just leave that.
And I do like with the little still lives. I quite like the idea of them pushed into a corner.
Yeah, I mean, you don't centralise it, which I mean I think it wouldn't. That's part of what you know. There's a difference between you and so many others. Is I think the way you do your balance and the way you apply your paint and abstract your flower actually takes what is a very traditional subject matter and makes it contemporary. Do you have a sort of artistic hero?
I do. I've got a few. The person who springs to mind immediately is Gwen John.
Oh yes, yeah.
Because I saw when I was a student, I saw a show of her work at the Barbican, and it's the most beautiful exhibition I've ever seen.
Right.
And her work is.
It's lovely,
it's exquisite, really, isn't it? Yes, it's very. It's all quite small scale, and it's very quiet. And that she used to take some of the oil out of her paint, apparently. So it's all very, very dry and very textured.
Okay.
But she did leave lots of little gaps, and you could see bits of canvas underneath, and so that's I sort of picked, and then there's a sort of rhythm all over the painting.
Right. And that's what you sort of took.
Yes, that's what I sort of picked up.
And just thinking in particular about this show and the work in the show, as I mentioned before, there are 34 pictures, and they range in size. Do you, from sort of, I think 20 by 20s or 30 by 30s up to your 1.5 metre canvas, do you prefer working big or small? Well, it's been really lovely to work on a big scale. I wouldn't say I prefer it necessarily, but I had for many years just worked on sort of medium-sized canvases and hadn't done any big pieces. I mean, I used to work on a massive scale when I was at art college. It is interesting how somebody will perhaps come and see something, a friend, or they'll say, "Oh, can I see what you're working on at the moment?" And if they don't gush, right, is there a problem?
Then you do think, or if they don't say something, or they say something in a very particular way, I can is that not? I wonder if it's a particularly good painting, or I'm still, I'm sure most artists you're quite sensitive. Yes,
I think so.
People's reactions, or I mean, that's not to say that I just want praise heaped on me all the time. But,
No.
you know, it's just,
I think
we're all quite sensitive.
Well, I remember somebody saying that selling a painting doesn't validate its worth. And I thought that was a brilliant saying. That was an artist that said that. And it doesn't make it mean it's successful because it's sold. And it doesn't mean if something doesn't sell, it's something, you know, lots of the time people think the best ones sell. Oh, that's gone. And that's completely untrue, because every painting is waiting for its right home.
Yes,
and it's so personal. And you just can't know who's going to connect. We're all different. And all you can do is produce a body of work that you feel every piece has integrity. We had a very spontaneous first show, which was amazing. And you were lockdown seemed to suit you. You got on a roll, and your work was incredibly uplifting, and this group just, I think, is carrying on in the same vein, but I feel has another level to it as well. There's 3 cutting flowers paintings in this show, and they feel majestic. Some of your paintings feel very sort of balanced and really charming. These feel richer and more densely worked in a way, but at the same time looser. I mean, that's what I feel about them. How do you feel about them?
Yes, there was something quite lovely and simple about those paintings, actually, because I had signed up to receive monthly flowers from a local cutting garden. Really close to here, actually. And you know, it's sort of organic, and they're all flowers that are in season, and there's something lovely about, you just turn up with your bucket and they fill it up with flowers, so you don't choose what you're going to be given, and it's what's in flower, you know, at that time, and so there was something really lovely about that, and I had to work quite quickly, because I was working from life with those. You
know, sometimes you do these lovely interiors that you make, so you'll put a pot, or you set a scene. There's a bit more of a context, where you'll have the flowers, and then you'll have a cup, or you'll have and I think that's really interesting as well. It's a sort of play of different objects and how you balance them. Would you say you've got a favourite flower? I
love Japanese anemones. I've just got which are everywhere at the moment.
Right.
Lots of, you know, front gardens. It's something about the stems. They're on these sort of very long stems, and I think they're called windflowers as well. So they sort of sway very gently in the wind. And
lovely.
They make the most beautiful shapes, and I just find them absolutely fascinating. I love them.
So you know,
so I've painted them over and over again, really. So.
Well, that's it. I mean, if it's something you love, you just can't tire of it, and they just always look different. And I think we've definitely got a few paintings of those in the show.
Yeah, so there's pink ones and
and there's one with a dark background. With the,
yes,
that's lovely. I mean, that's a very striking palette. The dark background and then the white flower. I mean, I think that's quite daring.
Some of the garden paintings are almost like a tapestry. You know, you're talking about sort of square, because I use a square-edged brush.
So
do you? Yes, I build up, and they're quite. I think it's a painting, the big painting of tulips, lots of different coloured tulips, which is from my garden, actually.
Right.
And that was, I found myself almost sort of, it's almost like a tapestry of Mars. It's really, really dense. And then some of the paintings, like this one, and like the ones of the Japanese anemones, are, I'm more looking at the silhouette almost of them, the shapes, and I will take out the background completely, and I will put them on a very plain background. So almost a bit like you know, Japanese screen, you know, a lot of Japanese painting, which is really simple. As I said, I'm trying very hard to paint a lot of wildflowers and not formal garden settings, but there is something about the Chelsea Flower Show that is really, and Hampton Court is what I go to as well.
They're the two sort of big ones you go to.
Yeah, so something, because people have thought really carefully about how they're putting the shows together and the gardens together, rather, and you're seeing all the flowers at their very, very best. I went to Cornwall in May and was just incredibly lucky. I happened to go at peak bluebell time. It was, you know, a week later, and it had all.
That's the extraordinary thing about bluebells, is it says that you blink and they're gone.
Yes.
And they're like a blanket, aren't they?
Yes,
Blue.
and they were just.
Where was that in Cornwall?
It was near Rock, actually.
Okay.
And and I just found a beautiful place near the house that we were staying in. There was a little hidden wood actually off of a corner of the field.
Right.
Near where we were staying, and it's just extraordinarily beautiful,
Lovely.
little secret wood. So that painting is in the exhibition actually.
Yeah, and the Bluebell Hedgerow, is
Yes,
that the same time?
Yes,
Okay,
the same
so you did a
time,
number
yes.
because they're quite different pictures.
They
One's
are.
big and one's sort of medium-ish small.
Yes.
All the time I've known you, they've featured, as will Snowdrops.
Yes.
I mean, it's these sort of charming, wild flowers. Well, thank you very much for welcoming me into your home. This is the first time we've been able to do, or I've been able to do, an artist interview and chat live.